This is the hardest review I've ever had to do. This one is for you, Derek. Dressed to Kill stars Angie Dickenson, Nancy Allen, Michael Caine, and is directed by Brian DePalma. Dressed to Kill is a film by Brian DePalma. I'm a huge fan of DePalma. He is in my at least top 5 favorite directors. Dressed to Kill is a movie that I've never seen before. I don't even think I even heard of it until I met Derek. So before I get into this review, let me talk a little bit about Derek. Derek is a great friend of mine. We met probably 2 years ago. He's a subscriber of mine, but we became fast friends. He's a huge horror fan. And he actually sent me this movie, and he also sent me The Howling. I reviewed The Howling already, and I wanted to review this one for him too. Unfortunately, Derek has a rare form of cancer called leiomyosarcoma. I hope I said that right. And he has been battling this for quite a few years now, and I will say that Derek is one of the strongest people that I have ever known, seriously. And so before I get into this review, I want to say that I appreciate your friendship so much. It's one of the greatest gifts I've ever had. And also I want to say the members of Killer Flicks, I have to thank you guys. Derek has been in hospice care this week, and I reached out to Killer Flicks, I reached out to the community, and I can't even thank you guys enough. There were literally hundreds of outpourings of messages, videos, everything. And I was just overwhelmed. And Derek, more importantly, was overwhelmed. He couldn't thank people enough. Even Deborah Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 5, which is one of Derek's favorite Friday movies. It might be his favorite Friday movie. She called him on the phone and talked to him. And Derek was just elated. You know, it's like his childhood icon. So again, thank you, Killer Flicks members. Now, let's get into the review for Dressed to Kill. Now, Derek sent me the Criterion Collection edition of this, and this is like my second Criterion edition that I've ever owned, and now I know why Criterion selects certain films to be released. I guess you could say cream of the crop. That's what Dressed to Kill is. Brian DePalma is one of those directors that just has such a signature style. He uses a lot of split screens. There's a lot of forward and back focus. And I'm no camera technical expert, but I can tell when a director knows what he's doing behind the camera. And Brian DePalma is like the type of director that students study. He uses the camera to tell the story. He knows how to use the camera to tell the story. He's amazing. And this film is like the perfect representation of that, more than any other film I've ever seen by him, honestly. Body Double happens to be one of my favorite films by him. And this one came out like 7 years before that. And I see some elements of Body Double in this movie. Or vice versa, I guess you could say, since this one came out first. And real quick, just to tell you why this movie is so important to Derek, he's actually a very talented artist. Ever since he was a little kid, when he was 10 years old, he loved this movie so much that he made his own paper puppet version of Dressed to Kill. He's a huge fan of Brian DePalma and the way he handles the camera. So this movie is a big reason why Derek started creating in the first place. But first, let's get into the plot of Dressed to Kill. What is this movie about? This is a good old erotic thriller. And I think there aren't that many great erotic thrillers. I think Basic Instinct is one of the better ones. And after seeing this movie, this might be the best of the bunch. But Angie Dickenson, she plays Kate, and the very beginning of this movie is a shower scene. Really, this movie is bookended with shower scenes, and I'm not complaining. But the beginning of this movie is kind of like an erotic fantasy. And then it turns kind of violent. And really we find out that what that all means is that Kate, something is missing in her life sexually. And so she starts fantasizing about this stranger. DePalma has a thing with strangers in his movie and sexual encounters. And this is one of those movies. But she has an encounter with this stranger at this art exhibit. And this scene is definitely one that I want to talk about stylistically, because if you watch it, there is very little to no dialogue whatsoever. This scene is completely driven by the music. The music is a great representation of what Kate is actually thinking about in this scene. As a matter of fact, this movie might have one of the best scores I think I've ever heard by Pino Donaggio. Pino is actually Derek's favorite composer, or one of his favorite composers. He constantly mentions him when we talk movies together. He actually did the score for The Howling as well. But eventually Kate is murdered by this like unidentified blonde woman, or what looks like a woman. And Liz, played by Nancy Allen, sees the whole event. This scene too, it's the elevator scene, and as a matter of fact, I posted like, what are your favorite like elevator scenes in a horror movie? This might be one of my favorite actually, because of how well it's directed. It sort of reminds me of like an Italian horror film, just this particular scene right here. As a matter of fact, a lot of DePalma's direction reminds me of Italian films. But this scene in particular really just completely sucks you right in. It's so intoxicating. And I've never seen horror directed so well. You know, for horror movies, I think you have like echelons. You have your like typical slasher movies like Friday the 13th, but then the cream of the crop, the top, is movies like Dressed to Kill, because of scenes like the elevator. This is a scene that a director could have taken and probably filmed it in half a day, but the way DePalma films this scene, it looks like it took him, you know, a week. That's how much goes into filming a scene like this, at least in my mind. It might have been filmed in half a day, I have no idea, but the way it was filmed and edited is just gorgeous. But for the rest of the movie, Liz is the main character. Nancy Allen does such a great job in this movie too, and it doesn't help that she looks like Nancy Allen. She's gorgeous. But Dennis Franz plays the detective, and he pins the murder on her and says, you have 48 hours to find proof that it's not you. And so that's what she does for the rest of the movie. Also, I must mention that Michael Caine plays the psychiatrist in this movie, and he plays a major part. I like his character because he is like one of the most blunt and honest psychiatrists I've ever seen on film. There's one scene where Liz like seduces him, and she says, are you attracted to me? And flat out he says, yes. Do you want to have sex with me? Absolutely I do, but I can't. And that's kind of a refreshing take on a character in a movie. And also there is this character named Peter, who was actually in the movie Christine, directed by John Carpenter. I kind of call him the Steve Jobs of this movie because he looks just like Steve Jobs. But he really is there to help Liz throughout this movie. And they're an unlikely pairing because she is a hooker and he is a geek. And usually you don't see hookers and geeks together in movies. But they work pretty well in this one. But I must say, Dressed to Kill was such a breath of fresh air. And it's so nice when you can go back and watch a movie that's almost 40 years old and just be completely blown away by it. Like, this whole movie was an experience. That's what it was. And it's one of those movies that you want to put your phone up and you want to sit down and you just want to take it all in. Let it soak right in. Make sure you got a good sound system. If you do those things, then this movie is like a surefire win. Like, this could be in my top 20 of all time. It's that phenomenal of a film. It makes me want to seek out even more DePalma films that I might not have seen, even though I've seen quite a few actually. Carlito's Way is actually one of my favorites. I love that movie. But I'm giving this movie Trapped on an Island. And I'm not doing that just because Derek asked me to review it. I was going to be honest. I did not expect this movie to be that great, but it's a masterpiece. It really is a masterpiece, guys. Definitely check it out. Get the Criterion edition if you can. But anyway, guys, that is my review for Dressed to Kill. Thank you, Derek, so much for sending that to me. Every day, you're in my thoughts, you're in my prayers. I'm completely rooting for you, and I have thousands of people behind me rooting for you as well. The strength that you must have to go through what you're going through right now is inspiring. It really is. And you've given so many people hope. You know, every day I look at what you're going through and it makes me like rethink my life, and I don't complain about things as much because of what you're going through. So you're truly appreciated, good sir. So anyway, guys, post in the comments your thoughts on Dressed to Kill. Also, show Derek some love, please. And also tomorrow night, as of this recording, I will be having a Scream stream, a special one dedicated to Derek with my good friends Cody Leach, CP from Well I Like It Reviews, and Brian Lomax. So this might be released the same day or even the day after, as soon as I get it edited. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and Drumdum out.